So welcome everybody to this Nutrition, Dietetics and Food Department HDR Open Day. This gives us opportunity to explain to yourselves the research that we're doing, the HDR research programs we have on offer, and also hopefully to gain your interest. So I'm Ricardo, I'm the HDR coordinator for the department, and I'll be chairing today's session. Just to introduce some of the proceedings. So I'll introduce you to Professor Gary Williamson, who's the head of the department. He'll do the introductory address. And then we have one representative, so a senior member of the research team, representative of the different arms of research that we do at our department, which includes the clinical nutrition, metabolic nutrition, public health nutrition, educational nutrition research. And we have a postdoc, which just recently finished a PhD, Zoya, who's going to present a little bit about the sports dietetic and working with industry. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Professor Gary Williamson, who will introduce the department and the research we do. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks very much, Ricardo. So my name is Gary Williamson. I'm professor and head of department. So the PhD students in the department are extremely important to us. They perform a vital role in our research program. Many of our publications that we produce come from PhD students, and we have about 30 students in the department. We have a philosophy of spending a lot of time with our PhD students and making sure that they have everything they need, whatever their research topic. So whether it might be working in the lab, working with volunteers, working on computer, or anything else. We make sure that they have all of the right facilities. So we have great facilities for working with volunteers at our Notting Hill base facility. And we also have a philosophy that we pay for the publications for any students in good quality journals. So we don't have any problems in that respect. So we have 4 research themes. We have a metabolism theme that includes exercise, shift workers, diabetes, omics responses to nutrition. So we do quite a lot of molecular nutrition as well. We also have clinical nutrition, which covers everything from hospital food to nutrition for special groups. We have public health nutrition, which includes dietary advice for populations and extends to remote stores for indigenous populations. And we also have education research, which is where we have research at the cutting edge of education, especially in nutrition and dietetics. So I'll hand over the rest of the time to the leaders in those particular areas, but that's what we do. We have a very welcoming environment for PhD students. So over to the next one.
Thanks, Gary. I'll just bring up my screen. Hi, everyone. My name's Nicole. My ears pricked up when Gary said we have a philosophy that we pay for publications. I just want to preface that we don't pay the person who writes the publication. I wish. But when you become a PhD student, the aim is to publish in reputable journals. And some of those journals, even some of the very good ones, do charge a publication fee, which was something I didn't know until I became a student myself, a PhD student. And so often that has to come out of your own funding, but if you're in a department that will actually pay that publication fee, that takes a lot of stress off, and it's a really good system. So I wish Gary was paying us per publication personally, but he's not. Okay. Now, can everyone see that? Okay, great. I've got the thumbs up. I've just got 2 slides here. Oh, I just better press. Okay. So as I said earlier, my name's Nicole. I'm one of the researchers who works within the metabolism theme, and we've got a team of about 10 to 12 leading nutrition science researchers from the disciplines of biochemistry, physiology, molecular biology, and dietetics, all converging together. It's like a melting pot of ideas that form the metabolism research theme. And one of the things that's really important to us is that we work in areas that, in fields where our findings can be directly translated to everyday life and to human nutrition. So that's important to us. And I'm just going to spend about 30 seconds on each different potential supervisor that you might come across. They're all great. I've got 3 on this page and 3 on the next page. So the first one is Associate Professor Maxine Bonham, and she's one of our leading researchers in the area of circadian rhythms and circadian nutrition. And so one of the things that we used to think of, and I used to be a dietitian many years ago before I became a researcher, we used to think that it didn't really matter what time of the day or night you ate, so long as the kilojoules that you ate was roughly equivalent to the kilojoules that your body expended over a period of about 24 hours, then your weight would remain stable. But we know that's not the case anymore. We know that eating at night causes this circadian misalignment in our body that results in the risk of increased weight gain and increased risk of chronic diseases, even though the people that are eating at night are not necessarily eating more kilojoules than someone who eats during the daytime. Now, that sounds fine if you don't eat at night, and you're probably thinking, well, who would eat at night? Well, up to 15 to 20% of our population works at night, and they're the people that look after us. They're our healthcare and emergency workers. They're our people who are working in supermarkets, stacking shelves. We really need to look after these people so that their eating at night doesn't become a problem where they're at increased risk for chronic disease down the track. And so Maxine's team's looking at simple changes in meal timing to help address this circadian disruption that night eaters experience. And her aim is to try and improve the metabolic health of night shift workers. And that's a world first study that she's conducting at the moment. Our next researcher, Dr. Amy Dordovic, looks at how what we eat can affect the expression of our genes, and that's known as nutrigenomics. Just as, you know, we've all been saying for years that if we take a certain drug and our best friend takes that same drug, we have very individual type effects of that drug on our body, and everyone's a little bit different and they respond in a different way. And we now know that our unique genetic makeup can influence our response to our diet. And so it's also true of diet, not just medications. Amy explores the effect of foods and nutrients on inflammation within the body. And inflammation is often a key driver in that early pathogenesis of chronic disease development. She's also interested in how different nutrients affect the health of the endothelium. The endothelium are the very important cells that line our vessels and arteries, and they have a unique response to different food components when we eat different types of meals. And that response of our endothelium can be measured acutely using a technique called flow-mediated dilation, which we have the expertise and the equipment to measure in our lab. And on this page, we'll finish off with Dr. Barbara Cardoso, who is investigating the association between the nutrient selenium and disease conditions such as dementia and depression. She's got a special interest in Brazil nuts, which are very high in selenium, and she's also interested in all kinds of nuts, not just Brazil nuts, but how nuts and the nutrition found in nuts can help slow the rate of cognitive decline that often is experienced as we age. So if you think of walnuts, they look a bit like a brain, and that's what Barbara's doing, trying to promote that brain health with aging. Now, Ricardo, in the interest of time, should I talk about you? Have I got time, or do I need to move on?
It's okay. Zoya can cover that later.
Okay, Zoya can cover that, but Ricardo's our researcher in endurance exercise physiology, but I'll leave that to Zoya, world's strongest woman. to cover in a minute. Ricardo does some pretty strange things with people. His researchers have people running marathons in the lab on exercise equipment in 35-degree heat, and then if they don't die, he then measures the different the metabolic health of these people, their blood, their inflammation markers, and so on, and also their gut health. So that's really interesting. We'll get on now to Gary Williamson, Professor Gary Williamson, who's head of our department. You met him earlier. He uses cell culture and human clinical trials to explore the role of dietary polyphenols in reducing chronic disease risk. And polyphenols are this huge family of plant-based compounds, so mainly derived from plants, but they can have a whole variety of beneficial effects on the body, such as reducing inflammation, reducing oxidative stress, and reducing blood glucose levels. And, you know, everybody knows about the great polyphenols in certain foods like dark chocolate and red wine. And one of the things that's a little bit more boring is that these polyphenols are mainly found in fruit and vegetables rather than dark chocolate and red wine. But it's a very interesting field. Gary's one of the world leaders in dietary polyphenol research and how well the polyphenols are absorbed from the diet into the body. And so he would be happy to talk to you about a number of different options for postgraduate study. And then there's finally myself, who has got a couple of projects on the go. One of the things that we've recently found is that certain types of foods, not probiotics or any foods that have specifically had bacteria added to them, but just ordinary old salad and certain fruits and vegetables are very high in bacteria, beneficial bacteria, and we want to track those from foods, those bacteria. We can do something called isolate tracking, where we can feed certain high bacterial foods to people and measure the gut microbiota, and we can look for genetically identical bacteria that have come from food and see how well bacteria in the food can find a place and persist in the gut and establish themselves. I'm also looking at the effect on dietary factors on fertility, and finally with a PhD student, and there's plenty of projects available in this field, where we're looking at non-traditional risk factors for diabetes in ethnically diverse populations within Australia. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Apologies, I didn't introduce you earlier on. I was talking, but I just realised I was on mute, so my voice didn't come through. So thank you, Nikki, for presenting the metabolic group. I'll pass over now to Dr. Zoe Davidson, who is the lead of the Clinical Nutrition Research Group.
Excellent. Thanks, Ricardo, and hopefully everyone can share my screen. My name's Zoe, and see my screen, sorry. My name's Zoe, and I'm here to introduce the Clinical Nutrition Research theme. On this first slide, I've actually popped up our website for clinical nutrition research. And if you're interested in this area, I'd really encourage you to head to that research, and you can read more in depth about the academics in this group. And it also links out to their peer profile, so you can see what everyone's doing and has done in the past. Or if anything you hear tonight sparks your interest, please feel free to email me. My email's on the screen, and I can help connect you to who you'd like to be connected with. So just quickly, to provide a little bit of an overview about what we do in clinical nutrition research. We predominantly do research with people, and our research interests really span across the lifespan. So we've got researchers working in preconception health and also maternal health, and then we work with children right up to older adults. And some of our research are actually looking into, the very oldest groups in society of 80 years and above. Within these lifespan groups, we look at conditions of both health and disease. And we also very uniquely do some research that starts to span across the health services. So we look at things like health service research, And also we've got some academics looking at food service delivery in hospitals and how we can make that more sustainable from an environmental perspective. We use a range of methodologies in our theme. So we do quite a lot of systematic review, but we also get in the lab with our participants. We can measure energy expenditure, body composition. When we're looking at our health services, we're thinking about how we're going to translate our research into practice and how we can improve nutrition outcomes for people with optimizing translation. We've done guideline development, dietary trials using randomized control techniques, as well as program evaluation. So we really are about doing gold standard research across the lifespan in health and disease, and that's clinical nutrition research. We're a relatively big theme, so we have, I think, about 11 academics at the moment, and 6 current PhD students. We just had 2 submit, which is very exciting. And as you can see, this is just a snapshot of our interests. So we have, you know, for example, myself, I work in pediatric nutrition and look very specifically at some genetic diseases such as neuromuscular disorders. And then we've got a range of academics looking at everything from food service, older adults, women's health, PCOS, as well as that clinical nutrition interface, and some education as well in this theme. You'll notice there's some similar academics across both groups. So we do have academics that sit across themes within the department as well. And I thought I'd just end today by giving you an idea of some of the projects that are on Supervisor Connect, and Nicole's highlighted some of these already in her talk. We've got some work looking at PCOS and weight management with Dr. Kay Nguyen. Food for fertility, which Nicole talked about, which is her project. Christy Bennett is looking at sleep in PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. Simone Gibson is doing some work with clinical education and the patient's perspective. As Nicole said, we've got Barbara who's looking at the role of nuts and cognitive performance, as well as selenium. And then there's some projects from myself looking at where children in Victoria can go to get help if they have overweight or obesity, or a very specific project looking at nutritional management in children with spinal muscular atrophy, which is a neuromuscular disease. All these projects are listed on Supervisor Connect, but as I said, please email me and I can help connect you with who you need to be connected to. Right, that's clinical nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zoe. We'll just jump the next one and go straight over to Professor Claire Palermo, and she's the head of the education research in the Department of Nutrition, Dietetics and Food, and I'll let Claire to explain that.
Thanks, Ricardo. I nearly forgot to unmute there. So our theme is perhaps the smallest theme in the department, but we do spread across all other researchers in that we try and draw in all our wonderful academic staff that are also fabulous researchers and fabulous teachers. And so our education research spans everything from how we create the best environments for learning and what we teach is effective, right through to whether we're preparing the workforce for the work that needs to be done and whether they're actually adequately prepared for that workforce. Some of the things that our theme is interested in is how we teach, learn and assess professionalism. We're also very interested in how we use patients, consumers, the community, and the clients that we work for as nutrition and dietetics professionals, and how we engage them in our education. And we're also interested in particular how we might best educate students in real world environments, for example, in hospitals and also in some of the placement settings that our nutrition and nutrition science students go into. So again, I've just provided, as Zoe has, the link to the researchers and some of the projects that we're doing on our website, but in true education style, I haven't bombarded you with slides, but I guess a fabulous team of researchers that are also great educators and would love the journey with you in terms of your learning in relation to a PhD. And I can't emphasise enough what Gary said. It's a wonderful team here at Monash, and we would welcome you. Our PhD team is incredibly supportive of each other, and they really do learn together. And I think the other thing that the education research theme does, as does the public health theme, is really embrace different methodologies. So we really are diverse in terms of what we can offer in terms of learning about not only gold standard randomised controlled trials, but right down through to qualitative observational research studies. So I think that's another strength of our department, and we would welcome you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Just one final group to talk about. So I'll just quickly provide a general summary of the Public Health Nutrition Research Group. So it's led by Associate Professor Julie Brimblecombe, and some of the general topics which are covered in the Public Health Nutrition include Indigenous nutrition and health, includes food sustainability, and also food inequality research. So if you are interested in that line of research work, going both the qualitative and quantitative methodology approaches, then I'd suggest you look at some of the public health nutrition research projects on offer. Just to finish off, I'll pass over to Dr. Zoya. Sorry, Zoya, I can never pronounce your last name. And I had to write it, I just can't say it. Very, very sorry. But Zoya just finished. Zoya is a clinical dietitian and a sports dietitian, and just finished her PhD in the area of sarcopenia and active aging with an industry-funded project. So I'll let Zoya speak about the link between PhD, her experience, and also industry, working with industry.
Great, thank you, Ricardo. I'm just going to share my screen. I've just got a couple of slides to go through. So essentially, I'm just going to briefly talk about, as Ricardo said, just my PhD journey and what it entailed. So I'll just briefly talk about how I got to doing my PhD in the first place. So as Ricardo said, I'm a accredited sports dietitian. So I did my Masters of Dietetics. I worked in private practice and industry prior to starting my PhD, and then I completed my honours project because I knew I wanted to do my PhD eventually. So after that, I got accepted in 2017, and I started my PhD at Monash University, where I then completed it earlier this year. So just to briefly go on my project, so as Ricardo said, I was looking at active aging. So I was looking at how we can use protein or a high dairy based beverage with weight training, and how we can use those interventions to, I guess, mitigate losses in strength and muscle mass as someone gets older. So in my first year, and most PhD students will find that in their first year, they'll undergo a systematic literature review. So essentially that is just looking at all the literature that is relevant to the topic, and to really determine what the holes are in the research. So the purpose of what I did was to really formulate a beverage that would be ideal to test with my industry partner. So I didn't mention who my industry partner was. That was Lion Dairy and Drinks, or formerly known as Lion, and now they're part of Beaker. So they supported my research project. During that time, I was able to also have my first publication, which was a letter to the editor in a really highly ranked journal. In my second year, so second and towards second and a half year, I had a main focus on my clinical trials. So I ran a 12-week intervention study, which had 4 different groups, and was looking at active older population. It was a pretty involved study. As previously mentioned, we do a lot of really high quality methods of measurement. So I included DEXA, blood biosamples, strength and performance measures as well. In my final year, obviously COVID happened, but that was actually a perfect time to just finish my thesis, and I was able to get 3 publications out. And just really focus on the writing aspect of that. So this is pretty similar to what you might experience in your 3 years of your PhDs if you decide to do something like that, on how it might be broken down. Some other experiences I got to, luckily, fortunately, got to experience. I went to China and South Africa and the UK to do some abstract presentations, and really got a really great experience, presenting to the scientific community in different areas of the world, and also got to network with people that are studying or in areas that were similar to mine as well. I also, during my time as a PhD student, got to do some practice and some experience of teaching as well. So if you want to go down the academic route after your PhD, that's something you can also do, and a lot of the staff will support you through that. My experiences with GRIP, so that stands for the Graduate Research Industry Partnership. So that's when your, I guess, your PhD is supported by an industry partner. And through that, I got to have a lot of other experiences, such as going to the bigger factory, got to see how a bigger peanut butter and Vegemite was made, which was really cool. A lot of workshops, so one on leadership, and a site visit to Ellen Bank, which is where they actually do, it's a dairy farm where they milk the cows, and they showed us the whole process of that. So as a dietitian, it was really great to see that from start to end, and also it was so relevant to my PhD project as well. And I guess life after my PhD, so as previously mentioned, I've finished and I'm doing my postdoc, working with Ricardo in areas of exercise performance. I've been a guest speaker on podcasts, and I guess it's just to reiterate that the PhD, if you decide to go down the academic route afterwards or not, it really does set you up for a lot of experiences, and opens up many doors for you in the future that you can really apply to any sort of work area. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of presenting our research themes and the current projects we have on offer. So just to finish off some housekeeping, I'm just going to share my screen. So this is our website here. So www.monash.edu, medicine, SCS, full of clinical sciences, nutrition and research. In here, you will go to the main page. And if you look at current PhD projects, that will take you directly to the ones which are available. And that is through Supervisor Connect, as you can see here. And then you can just scroll down and see which projects of interest and contact that relevant supervisor. Another option would be to contact myself. So ricardo.costa, ROCARDO.costa, COSTA @monash.edu. And I can provide you with a updated PhD booklet. And that's it from us. Anyone else want to mention anything or say anything else to finish? No? All right. Thank you for your audience, and I hope you get in contact with us and speak to you soon. Bye for now.